Hi, and welcome back to Reddit Confessions. Grab a coffee, or maybe a blanket, because what I'm about to share isn't just a story. It's a quiet scream I've carried for the past 48 hours, and I can't hold it in anymore. I wasn't supposed to be awake. It was one of those nights where your brain won't shut up, where everything feels itchy and wrong, but you don't know why. So instead of sleeping, I was doing what I always do when the silence gets too loud. I was scrolling through old photos of us. Not to torture myself. I just missed how we used to be, before things got weird, before her smiles stopped reaching her eyes. The call came in at 12:43 a.m. Incoming video call, Lorna. My thumb hovered. I stared, confused. She never called me this late, especially not on video. She said she'd be staying at her sister's for the night, helping with a baby shower, something about decorations and cupcakes. So why was she calling me? I answered. That's where it all begins and ends. The screen lit up, but instead of Lorna's face, I saw movement. Low lighting, a flicker of gold from a bedside lamp, and her laugh. I hadn't heard that laugh in months. It used to be mine. Now it wasn't. Then I saw her. Not dressed. Not alone. He was behind her. Tall. Tan. Tattoo on his shoulder. One I instantly remembered from a gym selfie she accidentally left open on her iPad 2 weeks ago. I'd asked about it. She brushed it off. Coworker, she said. Barely know him. Now she was curled up beside him, in a bed that definitely wasn't her sister's. I watched, frozen. My own reflection staring back at me in the black parts of the screen. Lorna reached for a wine glass, clinked it with his, whispered something that made him grin like he'd won a prize. Then he said it. Do you think he knows yet? She smiled. He's clueless. He still thinks I'm with my sister. That was it. That's the moment something inside me, something small and tired and still desperately hoping, snapped like cheap thread. I didn't hang up. I didn't say anything. I just left. No suitcase. No plan. Just my keys, wallet, and phone. I stepped out into the night barefoot, into the biting wind, and walked to my car like it wasn't even real life. And now I'm here, in the corner booth of a 24/7 diner I used to take her to. My coffee's cold. The waitress keeps glancing at me like she knows something's wrong but doesn't want to pry. My phone's buzzing again. It's her. But she has no idea I saw. No idea that one wrong tap, one accidental midnight video call, showed me everything she'd hidden so well. I don't know where I'm going next. But I do know this. I'm not going back. Texts, calls, 3 voicemails. I didn't answer any of them. Couldn't. I was still sitting in the same corner booth at that dusty diner, surrounded by cracked linoleum, the buzz of a broken neon sign in the window, and the smell of burnt coffee that no one seemed to notice. I hadn't moved in hours. My hands were still trembling. My food sat untouched. But my brain was doing overtime. I kept replaying the call, frame by frame, like my mind had turned into a cursed projector. Her voice, light and playful. His hands, casually resting where mine hadn't been allowed in months. The look on her face, so relaxed, so unbothered, like I didn't even exist in the world she'd created. Then the voicemails started. I didn't want to hear them, but part of me needed to, so I tapped play. Voicemail number 1 was static and panic. Dean? Dean, oh my God. I don't know what happened. That call wasn't meant for you, I swear. Please call me back. Okay? Please. Voicemail number 2 came 15 minutes later. Her tone had changed. Calmer but calculated. Okay, I'm guessing you saw something. Let's talk before you jump to any conclusions. There's more to this than you think. That line made me bark out a laugh loud enough for the waitress to glance over. More to this than you think. That's what people say when the truth is even worse than the lie. I knew that much. Voicemail number 3 was quiet, desperate. I messed up. I didn't want you to find out like this. I never meant to hurt you. Please, Dean, don't disappear on me. Just come home. Let's talk. I didn't cry. I should have. But it was like my emotions were stuck behind glass, screaming. While I sat there motionless, listening to the woman I'd built my life around try to undo a midnight mistake with her voice alone. At 6:02 a.m., she sent a final message. "If you don't answer by the time I get home, I'll assume you're done." I didn't reply. I didn't move. I just sat in the diner and watched the sunrise bleed into the parking lot like spilled paint. The thing is, when someone betrays you, there's a moment where your world doesn't just fall apart. It shifts. Subtly. Permanently. You can't unknow what you know. You can't go back to before. You start seeing every small moment differently. The times she turned her phone face down. The sudden work trips. The way she flinched when I asked her to cuddle. The extra gym sessions that didn't reflect on her body, only her phone's location history, not that I ever checked. I didn't want to be that guy. Now I was worse. I was the guy who knew and had no idea what to do with that knowledge. At 7 a.m., I got back into my car and drove. Not home. Not anywhere specific. Just away. No destination. Just motion. I ended up at a rest stop about 2 hours outside of town. I parked facing a cornfield, opened my notes app, and started writing everything I remembered from the call. Every word. Every expression. Every detail. I needed to document it like evidence in a crime I wasn't brave enough to report. That's when I noticed something strange. A name. She called him Thatcher. Not a name I'd heard before. Not from her mouth. Not in passing. It didn't match any of her coworkers or friends I'd met. That name wasn't a mistake. It was a clue. So I did what any broken man with a bruised heart and too much free time does. I searched. And what I found in that moment, the first breadcrumb on a trail I didn't know I was following, changed everything again. I didn't sleep. Not a second. I sat in my car, eyes locked on the horizon like it might blink and tell me what to do next. But all it gave me was heat. The kind that fills your car like a slow oven, suffocating without ever catching fire. I should have felt tired. I should have been falling apart. Instead, I was focused, sharper than I'd been in years. Obsessive. That name she whispered, Thatcher, was bouncing around my skull like a ricochet that wouldn't lose speed. I started typing it into everything I could think of. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I even checked her old Venmo feed, the one she thought she set to private but didn't. And that's where it started. Payment from 2 months ago. Money with wings, champagne, and room 413 face blowing a kiss. Sent to someone named T. Anders. No profile pic. Just a gray circle and a cryptic username. But the name was close enough. So I kept digging. Eventually, I found a tagged photo on her friend Marla's page. A group shot at a company retreat. 10 people lined up in front of some conference center. Most of them looked like HR interns on their first corporate trip. But third from the left, there he was. Same guy from the video. Silver chain. Cocky posture. The kind of face that looks like it's always calculating how much more important he is than you. Thatcher Anders. He wasn't just a fling. He was something more dangerous. He was comfortable. You could see it in their body language. The way she leaned slightly toward him, even in a group. The way his arm was resting behind her back. Not quite touching, but close enough to claim territory. They weren't new. They weren't accidental. They were practiced. And that broke me in a different way. I think part of me wanted it to be a one-time mistake. A stupid lapse in judgment. Something I could at least categorize and scream about. But this wasn't that. This was something that had roots. I threw my phone onto the passenger seat and just stared through the windshield. All I could hear was her voice from that video. He's clueless. She said it with pity. Not hate. Not even annoyance. Just that dismissive tone people use when talking about someone they've already decided doesn't matter anymore. That's what I had become. Clueless Dean. The vending machine guy. The man who paid the bills while she played hotel guest with a coworker who probably couldn't name 3 of her favorite songs but knew the shape of her spine in a way I hadn't touched in months. I started driving again. I didn't know where. My hands just went through the motions. 1 hour turned into 3. I ended up in a Walmart parking lot 2 towns over, just sitting there like a guy who lost his GPS and forgot to care. At some point, my phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. Dean, I think we should talk. It's not what you think. Please, just let me explain. T. He had my number. He had the nerve. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to. I did. I wanted to scream. I wanted to send him a string of words that'd make his ego fold in half. But instead, I just stared. Because the truth was, I wasn't angry yet. I was still in shock. And I hadn't even reached the worst part. Because later that night, when I finally checked our shared cloud account, the one we used to back up photos from vacations and birthdays and random mornings, I found something she forgot to delete. A video. From exactly 3 weeks ago. A hotel room. Same guy. Same silver chain. And her voice. Laughing again. But this time, she said something different. He still thinks I'm trying to get pregnant. I slammed the laptop shut so fast it echoed in the motel room. I think I stopped breathing. Because now it wasn't just about betrayal. Now it was about manipulation. Control. A version of her I didn't even recognize. One that planned things like they were strategy. One that kept sleeping in my bed while lying with a man who thought I was a walking punchline. And the truth was, I probably was. Until now. Because if she thought I was clueless before, she hadn't seen me after I started pulling every thread she left behind. I used to think the worst kind of pain was heartbreak. It's not. It's realization. It's that slow, excruciating moment when the version of your life you held in your hands starts to disintegrate. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Memory by memory. Until you don't even recognize the past you lived through. That's where I was. I'd spent the last 36 hours tracing digital footprints, listening to voicemails with the volume turned low, watching cloud recordings I never asked for and couldn't unsee. Every truth I unearthed buried another lie I didn't know I'd been living under. And worst of all, I hadn't confronted her. Not once. Because some part of me still wanted her to come clean on her own. But that fantasy died around 9:15 p.m. the next night. She called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I almost deleted it. Then I didn't. Played it. Her voice was soft, calm, like someone calling a sick relative in the hospital. Dean, I saw you open the cloud. I know you've seen some things. I want to be honest now. About everything. But please don't make a decision until we talk. I'll be home tomorrow. She wasn't panicked anymore. She was prepared. And that terrified me more than the affair ever did. So I made a decision. I drove home. Not to see her. Not to argue. But to look. To comb through the physical space we'd shared and try to figure out what else I missed. Or worse, what she wanted me to see. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Her favorite mug, the yellow one with the chipped handle, was sitting in the sink. Still had a bit of coffee inside. Her scent was in the hallway. I didn't even realize I remembered her perfume that clearly. I walked past our bedroom, straight to her office. The door was locked. She'd never locked it before. I picked it open with a bobby pin. Not proud. But I didn't care. Inside it looked untouched. Desk clean. Calendar up to date. Laptop open but asleep. And then I noticed the drawer. The bottom one. Always jammed. I yanked it open. Inside were 2 envelopes. One was labeled, Thatcher Backup Plan. The other had my name on it. My fingers went cold. I opened mine first. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a printout of a life insurance policy. On me. With her listed as the primary beneficiary. Dated 14 months ago. No note. No explanation. Just that. Neatly folded. Tucked away like it didn't mean anything. My head spun. I don't remember sitting down, but I was on the floor, staring at the corner of the desk. Everything in me wanted to scream, but my voice had packed up and left days ago. I opened the other envelope. I shouldn't have. It was worse. Printouts, screenshots, conversations. Her and Thatcher. Plans, travel dates, a list of hotels, notes about selling my business. One line circled in red. Once the vending account is cleared, he won't have any leverage. She wasn't just having an affair. She was planning an exit. An escape that left me with nothing. She had been siphoning money from our joint account into a separate checking account in her maiden name. I'd never noticed. Because I trusted her. Because I thought love meant not double-checking the math. Because I was a fool. By the time I stood up, I felt like I just walked out of a car crash. Numb. Hollowed out. But more awake than I had been in years. This wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy. She hadn't fallen for Thatcher. She'd been waiting for him. For his life to become available. And I was just the stand-in. The placeholder. The safe choice until her reckless one finally cleared the path. I walked out of that room slower than I entered. My feet felt heavier. My heart didn't even hurt anymore. It just settled into this low, constant throb, like background radiation. I slept in my car again that night, parked behind our local library. No one there. No noise. Just the echo of a life unraveling around me. Tomorrow she'd come home. But this time I'd be ready. The next morning felt like the inside of a slow-motion movie. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just dense, like everything moved half a beat behind. I sat in my car, parked down the street, watching the house I once called home through the dirty windshield like it belonged to someone else now. I hadn't slept. Again. Just stared at the dashboard and tried to steady my breathing. My chest felt too tight for my lungs, like there was something pressing down on me that wouldn't leave. And I knew what it was. The moment she walked through that front door, everything would change. At 8:54 a.m., a rideshare pulled up. She stepped out with her usual grace. Sunglasses, hoodie, phone in hand, pretending she hadn't just detonated the emotional equivalent of a nuclear device in someone else's life. She didn't see me, didn't even look around, just walked up the steps, unlocked the door, and went inside. That was my cue. I got out. My legs were stiff, my fingers tingling from gripping the wheel for so long. I walked across the street, calm but charged, like electricity was riding under my skin. I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I was done being afraid of the truth. The front door was still slightly ajar when I reached it. She hadn't closed it fully. Fitting. I pushed it open and stepped in. She was in the kitchen, pouring water into the coffee machine. Like nothing happened. Like we weren't standing in a timeline that had been split open and gutted. When she heard the door shut behind me, she froze. Her back straightened. She didn't turn right away. She just said, softly, "Dean." My voice surprised even me. "You're back early. Thought you were helping decorate for the baby shower again." She turned around. Slowly. Her face was unreadable for about 3 seconds. Then it cracked. Her lips parted. Her eyes widened. And her whole posture shifted from casual to cornered. "Dean, we need to talk." "Yeah," I said. "We do." I walked past her into the living room, picked up the envelope I'd left on the table. Not hers, mine. The one she never thought I'd find. I tossed it toward her. She didn't catch it. She didn't even try. Just watched it fall to the floor like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "You planning on telling me about the policy?" I asked. "Or were you going to wait until something convenient happened to me?" "Don't do this," she whispered. "Don't do what, Lorna? Ask questions? Exist? Figure out that I've been living with a woman who's been siphoning off my money and planning her exit strategy with a guy who wears gym chains and can't spell sincerity?" Her lip trembled. I don't know if it was real. It might have been. But it didn't matter anymore. "You don't understand," she said. "Then explain it," I replied. "Explain the hotels, the fake business trips, the notes about clearing my vending account and ghosting me. Explain once his life becomes available. That's what you wrote. Not me. You." Her legs gave out. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands shaking. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," she said. I almost laughed. That far as in what, exactly? How many months of betrayal counts as too far, Lorna? 6? A year? Or was it only when the call accidentally came to me that it started feeling too far? "I was scared," she said. "I didn't know how to leave." "No, you knew how to lie." I dropped the second envelope on the coffee table, the one marked Thatcher backup plan. She didn't even touch it. Just stared at it like it was a snake waiting to bite. "I read it all," I said. "The travel dates, the emails, the plan to sell my business without me knowing by forging my name and using the spare keys you lifted from my drawer." Her shoulders were shaking, but still no denial, no outrage. No claims of innocence. Just one sentence. I was waiting for him to commit. That's when something in me went quiet. Because there it was. The raw, undiluted truth. Not an accident. Not a one-time mistake. But a calculated waiting game. She'd built a life with me while holding her breath, hoping someone else would finally say, "Let's go." And now that he had, she was trying to rewrite the ending. "Then go," I said. "Take whatever you've packed. Leave the keys. Don't look back." She looked up at me. For once, I saw her face without any performance. No mascara. No defense. Just the naked horror of someone whose secrets had finally stopped being hers alone. "But still," she asked, "is there really no way back?" And I said nothing, because the silence she gave me for the past 6 months was finally echoing back at her. After everything I'd found, the documents, the plans, the betrayal hidden behind passwords and backup folders, I thought I'd explode, that I'd lash out, demand justice, throw something, scream. But I didn't. I just stood there, in the middle of the living room we once decorated together, watching her like she was an object in a museum. Something I used to understand but now only observed through glass. Her eyes were red, but no tears fell. She tried a few words. None of them stuck. I picked up my backpack, the one I'd packed days earlier. She saw it and her mouth moved like she wanted to say my name but couldn't figure out how it would sound anymore. "Where will you go?" she finally whispered. I didn't answer, because it wasn't her right to ask anymore. Instead, I said, "I'm removing myself from this equation. That's all you really wanted, isn't it?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. "It's not like that." But it was. It always was. For months, I'd been an inconvenience to her future. Something she had to hide, pacify, pretend around. She hadn't loved me for a long time, but she'd needed me. Needed the safety, the dual income, the shield of normalcy while she plotted her exit behind my back. Now that I wasn't useful anymore, she didn't know what to do. I walked toward the door, heart pounding. I didn't know where I'd sleep that night. I didn't have a master plan. I wasn't walking away into a movie moment where dramatic music played and closure fell into my lap like a prize ribbon. But I was leaving, and that mattered more than any clever line or grand gesture. She stepped in front of me, put her hand on my chest. "Dean, please," she said. "Let's talk before you make decisions you can't undo." I looked down at her hand, then back up into her eyes. "I already did," I said. I moved past her. She didn't try to stop me again. And then, just as I stepped outside, her voice caught up to me one last time. "Do you still love me?" I didn't turn around. But I gave her the answer she gave me months ago when she started lying and thinking I wouldn't notice. I closed the door. Softly. The kind of soft that's louder than any slam. I drove for hours. Stopped once for gas. Didn't eat. Just let the road decide for me. I landed 2 cities over. In a roadside motel where the room smelled like stale cigarettes and false hope. But it had a lock. A bed. A quiet. I sat on the edge of the mattress, trying to piece together what the last 6 years of my life had actually been. Wondering what memories were real, and which ones she had faked for convenience. Birthdays. Movie nights. Road trips. That time she held my hand in the ER when I thought I was having a heart attack. Was that love or just habit? I didn't know anymore, and maybe I never would. The thing they don't tell you about betrayal is that it doesn't just steal your present. It rewrites your past. It taints every good moment with the suspicion that it might have been a lie. I finally broke down that night. Not from anger, not from fear, but from mourning. I mourned the version of myself who believed in us, who thought loyalty meant something, who used to sleep soundly beside a woman who was already planning how to replace me with someone she claimed to barely know. And now I was just a name she'd probably delete from her phone. One she'd explain away to Thatcher with a lie that made her look like the victim. Let her. I wasn't going to correct the story, because when you leave someone who lives in fiction, there's no point dragging truth behind you like a suitcase. You just go. And let the silence speak for you. I didn't expect it to hit me in the diner, but that's where it happened. I was halfway through a cold plate of eggs and dry toast. A meal I didn't want but ordered anyway because it gave the waitress a reason not to look at me like I'd just been dragged out of the ocean. The motel was 5 miles behind me. The house? 2 cities away now. And her? Still texting. Still trying to frame her betrayal as a moment of confusion. Still calling me babe in the messages like the word hadn't been used on someone else's skin for months. That's when I decided to write the last thing I would ever say to her. Not an insult. Not a threat. Not a poem of rage. Just truth. I pulled out my phone. Typed slowly. Carefully. My thumb hovered over each word before I moved to the next. You didn't lose me the night I saw the call. You lost me every day you looked me in the eyes and lied without flinching. Don't contact me again. I've given enough of my life to someone who traded it for convenience. Goodbye. I hit send. Then I blocked her number. Immediately, a weight lifted. And I know how cliché that sounds. But it wasn't like the movies where the music swells and everything is suddenly okay. It was quieter than that. Smaller. Like my lungs finally had room again. Like my ribs had been slowly unbinding themselves from the inside out. I didn't finish the toast. Left cash on the table. Walked outside into the morning sun that felt too bright for someone who hadn't slept in 3 days. I had no job lined up. My bank account was half what it should have been. My reputation? Still intact but bruised by association, at least in the small circles of our town. I had no plan, but I had momentum, and that was enough. I drove to the town clerk's office and requested the paperwork to dissolve our joint business account. It took 15 minutes and a signature. Apparently she hadn't realized I still had primary authorization. Then I drove to a friend's auto repair shop. A guy I hadn't talked to in over a year. Carl. Good guy. Bit of a cynic. But when I told him I needed work and didn't want questions, he just nodded and said, "You still remember how to rebuild a soda coil?" That afternoon I was covered in grease. It was the first time in months I hadn't felt like a ghost wearing someone else's skin. The next day it happened. I got a call from a blocked number. I didn't answer. Then an email. Subject line. Please just read this. I deserve that much. I didn't open it, but I saw the preview in my inbox. The first line read, Thatcher left. He said this was never serious to him. I was stupid. I see that now. Please. I stared at the screen for a long time, and instead of feeling triumph or revenge or even satisfaction, I felt nothing, because that's what happens when someone burns every version of themselves in front of you. You stop recognizing them. You stop reacting. I didn't delete the email. I archived it. A reminder, not of the pain but of what I survived. Because here's the truth no one likes to admit. Closure doesn't come wrapped in poetic endings. It's not found in confrontation or apology or a teary last conversation on the porch. Sometimes, closure is a quiet breakfast in a borrowed town. A blocked number. A bruised man deciding he won't let someone else's selfishness define his reflection in the mirror anymore. I sat on the curb that evening with a soda in one hand and Carl's shop dog resting her head on my knee. And for the first time in what felt like years, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I was still here, still whole, still rebuilding. And because the silence I once feared had become my favorite sound. It's strange how healing doesn't arrive like a parade. No fireworks, no music, no moment that screams, "You're okay now." It sneaks in, quietly, in the spaces where grief used to echo, in the silence you once feared but now fill with your own breath. It happened slowly. A week after I blocked her, I moved into a small basement apartment above a used bookstore. The walls are uneven. The floors creak. My mattress sits on the floor because I haven't gotten around to buying a frame. But every morning, I wake up and there's no pretending. No double-checking smiles. No wondering if the person beside me is actually somewhere else. It's just me. And for once, that's enough. Carl offered me a steady gig. Turns out, there's still demand for people who know how to fix things. Vending machines, coin changers, small refrigeration units. I work 6 days a week. My hands are calloused. My nails are stained. But I sleep at night. Like really sleep. The kind where you don't wake up wondering what you missed. I started jogging again. Nothing intense. Just enough to remind myself I have a body I can move. I made a new playlist. It doesn't remind me of her. And every Sunday, I sit at a corner table in that same diner with a cheap coffee and a blank journal. I don't write about her anymore. I write about what I'm building. About the guy who made it through. About the life I want, not the one I clung to out of fear. As for Lorna, she tried one last time. A letter. Handwritten. Delivered to Carl's shop. I didn't read it. I burned it in a metal can behind the shop while Carl smoked a cigarette beside me and said, "Hell of a thing, man." He was right. It was. But it's over. I didn't get my wife back. But I got something better. I got my voice. And if someone out there is reading this, sitting in their own silent wreckage, afraid to take the first step out, let this be the proof you need. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. You don't need the perfect comeback or the dramatic ending. You just need one decision. I deserve more than this. Make it. Stick to it. And keep walking even if you don't know where the road leads yet. Because sometimes the best thing you can do is leave quietly and rebuild loudly. Thanks for following this journey on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever gone through something that made you question everything and came out stronger on the other side, drop your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear what helped you take that first step. You never know who needs it. And if this story meant something to you, share it. There's someone out there who needs to know they're not alone.